Zixara pressed her back against the curved wall of the recreation dome and watched the other children play. Her crystalline skin remained a dull gray color, matching the metal walls around her. She had learned that staying gray meant staying invisible, and invisible meant safe. The dome was huge, stretching up so high that artificial clouds floated near the ceiling. Different sections had different gravity settings and atmospheric conditions to make all the alien species comfortable. Right now she was watching a group of children play something called quantum tag in the center area, where most species could breathe easily. The game looked confusing to her. Children from 6 different worlds ran around, disappearing and reappearing in flashes of light. They laughed and screamed as they chased each other through dimensional portals. The Zalarian kids moved like liquid mercury. The Corvin children bounced on their 4 legs, and the human children ran on 2 legs while making the loudest noises of all. Zixara had been at Kepler Station for 3 months now. Her parents had sent her here to learn about other species and improve her social skills. The Vorthak Council believed their children needed to understand other cultures to be better leaders. But so far, all Zixara had learned was that she did not fit in anywhere. She touched the smooth crystal growth on her left temple, a habit she had when nervous. Other Vorthak children her age had larger crystal formations, showing they were developing their analytical abilities faster. Zixara's crystals were small and barely glowed. Her parents hoped mixing with other species might help her develop differently, but 3 months later, nothing had changed. A Corvin child bounced past her, stopped, and turned around. His 4 eyes blinked at her in sequence. "Hey, Crystal Girl," he said in the common language they all learned. "Want to play? We need someone else for teams." Zixara's skin flickered from gray to deep purple for just a moment. Purple meant embarrassment and fear. She quickly forced it back to gray. "I do not play games like that," she said quietly. The Corvin child tilted his head. "Why not? It's fun." "Fun is not logical," Zixara replied, repeating something her tutors had taught her. "Games waste time that could be used for learning." "Learning is what we do in the morning," the Corvin said. "This is rest time. You're supposed to have fun during rest time." "I am resting," Zixara said. "I am observing." The Corvin child looked at her for a moment longer, then bounced away. She heard him tell the others, "The Vorthak girl doesn't want to play. She says games are not logical." Some of the children looked over at her. A human girl with dark hair rolled her eyes. "Typical Vorthak," she said loud enough for Zixara to hear. "They think they're too smart for everything." A Zalarian boy nodded. "My dad says Vorthaks don't know how to have fun. They only care about numbers and patterns." "Maybe that's why they're so good at building computers," another human child said. "They're basically computers themselves." The children laughed and went back to their game. Zixara's skin wanted to turn deep purple again, but she kept it gray. She had heard comments like this before. Teachers at the station often praised Vorthak students for their analytical skills, but the other children saw this as a bad thing. They thought being good at math and patterns meant being boring. Zixara did love patterns and numbers. When she looked at the game the children were playing, she could see the mathematical principles behind the dimensional portals. She could calculate the probability of where each child would appear next. She could design a better strategy for winning. But whenever she tried to explain these things to other children, they looked at her like she was speaking a foreign language. The truth was, she did want to play with them. When she watched them laugh and run around together, her skin wanted to turn blue, which meant longing. But she had learned to hide that too. The few times she had tried to join games, the other children had quickly become frustrated with her. She asked too many questions about the rules. She wanted to understand the logic behind everything before she could enjoy it. She calculated optimal strategies instead of just playing for fun. After a few attempts, most children decided she was no fun to play with. They were not mean about it, but they stopped inviting her. So now she watched from the edges, trying to understand what she was missing. She moved to a different section of the dome where older children were playing a strategy game on floating platforms. This looked more interesting to her. The players had to solve puzzles while moving their pieces across a 3-dimensional board. She could see the patterns in their moves, the logical sequences they were following. A group of teenage Vorthaks was watching this game too. Their crystals were much larger than hers, glowing with soft blue light as they analyzed the moves. One of them noticed her approach. "Zixara," the older girl said. Her name was Velven, and she was considered very advanced for her age. Why are you not with children your own age? They are playing quantum tag, Sixara said. It is not very intellectually stimulating. Velden's crystals glowed brighter, which meant approval. Good. You should not waste time on such frivolous activities. Come watch this game with us. You might learn something useful. Sixara joined the group of older Vorthax, but she did not feel better. They accepted her because she was not playing with the younger children, but she could tell they thought she was inferior because of her small crystals. She was too analytical for the other species, but not analytical enough for her own people. As she watched the strategy game, she noticed something the older Vorthax had missed. There was a pattern in how the players were moving their pieces, a repeating sequence that suggested one player was setting up a trap. She started to point it out, but Vel then interrupted her. You should focus on understanding the basic rules before trying to see advanced patterns, Vel then said dismissively. Your crystals are not developed enough for complex analysis yet. Sixara's skin flickered purple again, but she said nothing. Even when she was right about something, others dismissed her because she was young or different or not developed enough. She left the strategy game and found a quiet corner of the dome where she could sit alone. From here she could see most of the recreation area. Children played, laughed, and made friends while she watched from the outside. Her skin stayed gray, the color of walls and shadows and things that were meant to blend in and disappear. Sometimes she wondered what was wrong with her. Other Vorthak children seemed happy focusing on their studies and developing their analytical abilities. Other species children seemed happy playing games and making friends. She was the only one who felt caught between two worlds belonging to neither. She pulled out a small device from her pocket, a puzzle cube that generated random mathematical sequences. Solving patterns always made her feel a little better, even if it confirmed what everyone thought about her being too focused on logic. At least numbers made sense. At least equations had clear answers. At least when she solved a pattern, she knew she had accomplished something real. Her skin flickered the tiniest bit of yellow as she worked on the puzzle. Yellow meant mild contentment. It was not much, but it was better than gray. Marcus Chen had been at Kepler Station for exactly 12 days when he first noticed the alien girl who stood alone during recreation time. He was still getting used to seeing so many different species in one place, but something about her caught his attention in a way the others did not. She had crystalline skin that seemed to change color, though the changes were so subtle that most people missed them. Marcus had always been good at noticing small details that others overlooked. His mother said it was because he was curious about everything, sometimes too curious for his own good. The girl was clearly not human. Her skin looked like it was made of smooth, translucent crystal, and she had small crystal growths on her temples that glowed faintly. She was taller than most human children her age, with longer limbs and larger eyes. But what really caught Marcus's attention was how she stood so perfectly still while watching others play, like a statue observing life happening around it. Marcus was sitting with 3 other human children at a floating table, eating lunch and talking about their morning classes. Jake, who had been at the station for 6 months, was explaining the different alien species to the newer arrivals. Those are Corvins, Jake said, pointing to the 4-legged children bouncing around the dome. They're really good at sports because they can jump super high, and those liquid-looking ones are Zilarians. They can change their shape a little bit, which makes them great at hide-and-seek. What about her? Marcus asked, nodding toward the crystal girl. Jake followed his gaze and shrugged. Oh, that's one of the Vorthax. They're the really smart ones. Like scary smart, but they're also really boring. Boring how? Marcus asked. They don't play games or anything, said Sarah, another human girl. They just study all the time and talk about math and patterns. I tried to include one in a group project once, and he just corrected everyone's calculations instead of actually helping. My roommate is Corvin, and he says Vorthax don't understand fun, Jake added. They think everything has to have a logical purpose. They're like walking computers. Marcus looked back at the Vorthak girl. She was still standing in the same spot, but now she was holding some kind of puzzle device. Her fingers moved quickly over it, and Marcus could see the slight glow from her temple crystals growing brighter as she worked. What's her name? Marcus asked. I don't know, Jake said. I don't think anyone talks to her much. She's been here longer than me, but she always just stands around by herself. Marcus watched as a group of children ran past the Vorthak girl, laughing loudly as they chased each other. For just a moment her crystal skin changed from gray to a pale blue color, before quickly shifting back to gray. It happened so fast that Marcus almost missed it, but he was sure he had seen it. Over the next few days, Marcus found himself watching the Vorthak girl more often. He started to notice patterns in her color changes that others missed. When she was solving her puzzle, her skin would shift to yellow. When someone laughed nearby, she would flicker blue for just a second. When older Vorthak students ignored her, she would flash purple before returning to gray. Marcus realized that her skin colors meant different emotions. She was not emotionless like the other children thought. She was feeling things, but she was hiding them behind the gray color. He also noticed that she was incredibly observant. During a game of quantum tag, Marcus saw her watching the players with intense focus. Her head would move slightly to track the dimensional portals, and her temple crystals would glow as if she was calculating something. When one player used a particularly clever strategy, her skin would flicker yellow with what looked like appreciation. She understands the game, Marcus realized. She understands it better than most of the people playing it. Marcus decided to test his theory. During recreation time, he positioned himself where he could watch both the game and the Vorthak girl. Every time a player made a smart move, her skin would change color slightly. When someone made a mistake, she would tilt her head as if she wanted to correct them. After 3 days of observation, Marcus was certain. She wanted to play with the other children, but something was stopping her. Maybe she did not know how to join in, or maybe the other children had made her feel unwelcome. Marcus had always been the type of person who wanted to help others. His parents said he inherited it from his grandmother, who had been a teacher for 40 years. When he saw someone sitting alone at lunch, he would invite them to his table. When he saw someone struggling with homework, he would offer to help. But approaching an alien was different from helping another human child. Marcus did not know anything about Vorthak culture or social rules. What if he accidentally offended her? What if she really did prefer to be alone? He decided to start small. During lunch, instead of sitting at his usual table, Marcus chose a table closer to where the Vorthak girl usually stood. He did not approach her directly, but he made sure she could see him if she looked over. The first day, she did not seem to notice him. The second day, she glanced at him once before looking away quickly. The third day, when Marcus sat down, he caught her looking at him. When their eyes met, she immediately turned away, but her skin had flickered from gray to pale purple. Marcus realized she was nervous about his attention. He remembered what Jake had said about other children not talking to her much. She probably was not used to anyone showing interest in her. On the fourth day, Marcus tried something different. Instead of just sitting near her, he brought his own puzzle device to lunch. It was a human puzzle called a Rubik's Cube that his father had given him. He sat at his table and started working on it, making sure the movements of his hands were visible to anyone watching. Within minutes, the Vorthak girl was looking at him. Her temple crystals were glowing brighter as she watched him manipulate the cube. Marcus pretended not to notice her attention, but he made sure to use some of the more complex algorithms he knew. When he finished solving the cube, he heard a small sound from the Vorthak girl's direction. He looked over and saw that her skin had changed to bright yellow, brighter than he had ever seen it before. She was staring at his hands with obvious fascination. Marcus made a decision. He stood up, walked over to where she was standing, and held out the cube to her. "Want to try it?" he asked in the common language. The Vorthak girl looked at him with surprise. Her skin shifted rapidly through several colors: purple, gray, yellow, blue, before settling on a pale green that Marcus had not seen before. "I do not know this pattern," she said quietly. Her voice had a musical quality that Marcus found pleasant. "It's called a Rubik's Cube," Marcus said. "It's a puzzle from my planet. You have to get all the same colors on each side." She took the cube carefully as if it might break. Her long fingers turned it slowly, examining each face. Marcus watched as her temple crystals began to glow brighter. "There are many possible combinations," she said, more to herself than to him. "About 43 quintillion," Marcus said, "but there are algorithms that can solve it pretty quickly once you learn them." Her skin shifted to bright yellow again, and for the first time since Marcus had been watching her, she looked directly at him with what he was sure was a smile. "My name is Marcus," he said. "I am Zixara," she replied, still holding the cube. "This puzzle is very interesting." Marcus sat down on the floor next to where she was standing. "Would you like me to show you how to solve it?" 3 weeks had passed since Marcus first shared his Rubik's Cube with Zixara, and their daily meetings had become the best part of both their days. They had moved from the recreation dome to a quieter study area, where they could talk without interruption. Marcus discovered that Zixara was not just smart, she was brilliant in ways that amazed him. She had solved his Rubik's Cube in less than 10 minutes on her first try, then proceeded to develop 3 new algorithms for solving it faster. When he brought her more complex puzzles from the station's game library, she would examine them for a few minutes, then solve them while explaining the mathematical principles behind each solution. But Marcus also learned that Zixara's intelligence came with a price. She thought about everything so deeply that simple activities became complicated for her. When other children played games, she would automatically analyze the optimal strategies instead of just enjoying the fun. When someone told a joke, she would think about the logical structure of humor instead of just laughing. "My tutors say I think too much," Zixara told him one afternoon as they worked through a quantum physics puzzle together. Her skin was a comfortable yellow color, which Marcus had learned meant she was content and focused. "They say Vorthak children should learn to use their analytical abilities, but I use mine for everything, even things that do not need analysis." "Maybe that's not a bad thing," Marcus said. "Maybe you just need to find the right things to analyze." Zixara's temple crystals glowed brighter. "What do you mean?" Marcus had been thinking about this for days. He had watched Zixara solve increasingly difficult puzzles with ease, but he had also seen her standing alone during recreation time, her skin flickering blue with longing when she watched other children play together. "What if we could find a way to combine what you're good at with what you want to do?" Marcus asked. "I want to be part of a group," Zixara said quietly. "But groups do not want someone who calculates the probability of success before attempting anything fun." Marcus pulled out his tablet and opened a file he had been working on. What if the group needed someone who could calculate probabilities? What if that was actually helpful instead of annoying? Zixara leaned over to look at the screen. Her skin shifted to bright yellow as she read his notes. "You have been designing a game." "We have been designing a game," Marcus corrected. "I started with the idea, but I need your help to make it actually work." For the past week, Marcus had been thinking about ways to create a game that would appeal to both analytical minds like Zixara's and fun-loving children like his human friends. He had started with the basic concept of combining strategy, puzzle solving, and physical activity. "Look at this," Marcus said, showing her his rough sketches. Players would work in teams to solve pattern sequences, but they would have to do it while navigating through physical challenges. The patterns would get more complex as the game progresses, and teams would need both physical skills and analytical thinking to win. Zixara studied the sketches carefully. Her crystals were glowing so bright now that they cast small rainbows on the wall behind her. "This is very interesting," she said. "But the pattern sequences you have drawn are too simple, and the physical challenges do not integrate well with the mental components." "That's why I need your help," Marcus said. "I can come up with fun ideas, but you can make them actually work mathematically." For the next 2 hours, they worked together to refine Marcus's concept. Zixara redesigned the pattern sequences to create multiple levels of difficulty that would challenge players without being impossible. She calculated optimal team sizes and game duration. She even figured out how to make the physical challenges complement the mental ones, instead of just being random obstacles. Marcus contributed ideas for making the game exciting and engaging. He suggested ways to add surprise elements that would keep players interested. He designed reward systems that would make both winning and learning feel good. Most importantly, he made sure the game would be fun for species with different abilities and interests. "This could actually work," Zixara said as they finished their initial design. Her skin was cycling through colors Marcus had never seen before: silver, gold, and pale rainbow shimmers. It would require players to think strategically, but they would also need to move quickly and work together. "And the best part," Marcus added, "is that teams would want someone like you. Your analytical skills would be a huge advantage, not something that makes the game less fun." Zixara looked at him with an expression Marcus had learned to recognize as surprise. "You really think other children would want me on their team?" "I think they would fight to have you on their team," Marcus said honestly, "once they see how good you are at this." Over the next few days, they continued to develop their game. Marcus brought problems to Zixara, and she would solve them while teaching him the mathematical principles behind her solutions. Zixara brought ideas to Marcus, and he would figure out how to make them accessible and fun for other children. Working together, they accomplished things neither could have done alone. Marcus's creativity combined with Zixara's analytical precision created something entirely new. The game they were developing was complex enough to be intellectually challenging, but structured in a way that made it easy to learn and enjoyable to play. Marcus also noticed that Zixara was changing. When she was excited about an idea, her skin would shift to bright colors that she no longer tried to hide. When she laughed at something Marcus said, the sound was genuine and musical. When she explained a concept to him, she would use her hands to gesture, and her whole body would become animated with enthusiasm. "I have never had a friend before," Zixara told him one afternoon. They were testing one of their pattern sequences to make sure it was the right difficulty level. "Other Vorthak children think I am not advanced enough because my crystals are small. Children from other species think I am too advanced because I analyze everything. Maybe you just needed to find someone who thinks the way you analyze things is actually cool," Marcus said. Zixara's skin shifted to a warm gold color that Marcus had learned meant deep happiness. "You do not think I am strange?" "I think you're amazing," Marcus said. "You can see patterns in things that I would never notice. You can solve problems that would take me hours to figure out, and when you explain things to me, you make them make sense in ways that no teacher ever has. You make me feel like my abilities are useful instead of just different," Zixara said. Marcus realized this was exactly what he had hoped would happen. By working together on something they both cared about, they had found a way to bridge the gap between their different ways of thinking. Zixara got to use her analytical skills in a way that felt meaningful, and Marcus got to learn from someone who saw the universe in completely different ways than he did. "Are you ready to show our game to other people?" Marcus asked. Zixara's skin flickered through several colors before settling on determined silver. "Yes," she said. "I think I am ready," Marcus smiled. He had a feeling that introducing pattern wars to the other children at Kepler Station was going to change everything for Zixara. But more than that, he suspected it was going to change things for everyone who played it. Marcus and Zixara stood at the edge of the recreation dome, watching the usual chaos of children playing their various games. Today felt different, though. Today they were going to introduce pattern wars to everyone else, and Marcus could see that Zixara was nervous. Her skin kept shifting between gray and pale purple, the colors flickering faster than usual. She was holding the game components they had built together: pattern cards, dimensional markers, and the portable holographic projector that would create the playing field. "What if they do not like it?" Zixara asked quietly. "What if they think it is too complicated or too boring or too difficult?" "What if they love it?" Marcus replied. "What if it becomes the most popular game on the station?" Zixara looked at him with those large, crystal-flecked eyes. "You really believe that could happen?" "I believe you created something amazing," Marcus said. "And I believe other kids are going to see that too." Marcus had spent the past week talking to different groups of children about trying a new game. He had been careful not to mention that it was designed by a Vorthak, knowing that some children had prejudices about Vorthak games being too intellectual. Instead, he had focused on the exciting aspects: teamwork, physical challenges, and the chance to win by being clever. Jake and Sarah had agreed to try it first, along with 2 Corvin children and a Zalarian girl named Flux. Marcus had chosen this group carefully. They were all friendly, open-minded children who were good at including others. "Okay, everyone," Marcus called out as the group gathered around them. "This is my friend Zixara. We've been working together to create a new game, and we want to see what you think of it." Jake looked surprised. "You're friends with a Vorthak? I thought they didn't make friends with other species." "Zixara is different," Marcus said, putting a hand on her shoulder. He could feel her trembling slightly. "She's actually really cool once you get to know her. And she's incredibly smart. This game wouldn't exist without her." Zixara's skin shifted to pale yellow at the compliment, but she still looked nervous. "The game is called Pattern Wars," she said in her musical voice. "It combines strategic thinking with physical challenges and teamwork." She activated the holographic projector, and suddenly a 3-dimensional playing field appeared in the air in front of them. It looked like a maze made of light, with floating platforms, moving walls, and glowing symbols scattered throughout. "Wow," Sarah breathed. That looks incredible. One of the Corvin children, a boy named Bounce, hopped excitedly. How do we play? Zixara's skin brightened to a more confident yellow as she began to explain. Players work in teams of 3. Each team must navigate through the maze to collect pattern sequences. But the sequences are not random. They follow mathematical rules that get more complex as you progress. She gestured, and the holographic maze changed to show the first level. This is level 1. The patterns are simple, just color sequences and basic shapes. But as you advance, the patterns become more sophisticated. They might involve quantum probability, dimensional mathematics, or even temporal logic. Marcus could see the other children's expressions changing from excitement to confusion. This was exactly what he had been worried about. But here's the fun part. Marcus jumped in quickly. You don't have to understand the math to play. The game teaches you the patterns as you go, and different team members can specialize in different things. He activated a demonstration mode that showed 3 holographic figures moving through the maze. Maybe one person is really good at the physical challenges, jumping between platforms and avoiding obstacles. Maybe another person is good at recognizing visual patterns, and maybe the third person is good at logical analysis. The key, Zixara added, warming up to the explanation, is that no one can win alone. The physical challenges require speed and agility. The pattern recognition requires quick visual processing, and the logical analysis requires deep thinking. Every team needs all 3 types of skills. Flux, the Zalarian girl, rippled with interest. So it's not just a smart person's game or just a physical person's game? Exactly, Marcus said. It's designed so that everyone has something important to contribute. Bounce was already moving toward the starting platform. Can we try it? This sounds really fun. Marcus looked at Zixara, who nodded. Her skin had shifted to bright silver, which he had learned meant determination mixed with excitement. They divided into 2 teams of 3. Marcus made sure that Zixara was on the opposing team from him, so that both teams would have someone who understood the game mechanics well. Jake and Sarah joined Marcus's team, while Zixara teamed up with Bounce and Flux. The game began, and immediately Marcus could see that their design was working exactly as intended. Jake, who was athletic and quick, took the lead on navigating the physical obstacles. Sarah, who had good pattern recognition skills, focused on identifying the sequences they needed to collect. Marcus coordinated their strategy and helped solve the more complex logical puzzles. On the other team, Bounce's 4-legged agility made him perfect for the jumping challenges. Flux's ability to change her shape slightly allowed her to reach places others couldn't. And Zixara was in her element. Marcus watched in amazement as she guided her team through increasingly complex challenges. When they encountered a pattern sequence that required calculating quantum probabilities, she explained the concept in simple terms that her teammates could understand. When they faced a logical puzzle that seemed impossible, she broke it down into smaller steps that anyone could follow. But the most amazing thing was how she did it. Instead of just solving everything herself, she taught her teammates how to think through the problems. Instead of being impatient with their questions, she encouraged them to try different approaches. Instead of making them feel stupid for not understanding immediately, she celebrated every small success they achieved. Zixara, that was brilliant. Flux exclaimed when they successfully solved a particularly difficult pattern. How did you know that the colors were connected to the mathematical sequence? Zixara's skin was cycling through colors Marcus had never seen before. Bright golds and silvers mixed with shimmering rainbows. I have been studying pattern recognition for many years, she said. But you were the one who noticed that the colors changed when we moved. I would not have seen that connection without you. Marcus realized something important was happening. Zixara was not just participating in a game. She was learning how to be part of a team. She was discovering that her analytical abilities could help others instead of separating her from them. The game continued for over an hour, with both teams becoming increasingly engaged and excited. They cheered for each other's successes, helped each other through difficult challenges, and celebrated together when someone made a breakthrough. When they finally finished, both teams were exhausted but exhilarated. Jake was breathing hard from all the jumping and running, but he was grinning widely. That was the most fun I've had since I got to this station, he said. I actually learned quantum probability while playing a game. How is that even possible? It's possible because Zixara is a genius, Sarah said, looking at the Vorthak girl with new respect. The way she explained things made everything make sense. Bounce was still bouncing with excitement. Can we play again tomorrow? I want to try the higher levels. I want to bring my friends to try it, Flux added. This is unlike any game I have ever played. Marcus looked at Zixara, whose skin was now a steady, warm gold color. She was smiling, really, truly smiling, in a way he had never seen before. I cannot believe they actually enjoyed it, she said quietly to Marcus. I was certain they would think it was too complicated or too educational. You gave them something amazing, Marcus said. You created a game that makes people smarter while they have fun. You found a way to share what you love with others in a way that they could love it too. As the other children continued to talk excitedly about the game, planning when they could play again and who else they wanted to invite, Marcus realized that something fundamental had changed. Zixara was no longer the lonely alien girl standing at the edge of the recreation dome. She was the center of attention, but in the best possible way. She was valued, appreciated, and included. And the best part was that she had accomplished this by being exactly who she was: brilliant, analytical, and passionate about patterns and logic. She hadn't needed to change herself to fit in. She had simply needed to find the right way to share her gifts with others. 2 months had passed since the first game of Pattern Wars, and Kepler Station had been transformed. What started as an experiment between Marcus and Zixara had become the most popular activity in the recreation dome. Children from all 12 species represented at the station had not only learned to play, but had begun creating their own variations and expansions of the game. Zixara stood in the center of the dome, surrounded by a group of younger children who were asking her to explain the mathematical principles behind Level 7 pattern sequences. Her skin was a brilliant combination of gold and silver, colors that had become her normal appearance over the past weeks. She no longer hid behind dull gray camouflage. Remember, she was saying to a young Corvin girl who was struggling with temporal logic patterns, time is not linear in this sequence. Think of it like a river that sometimes flows backward. The pattern appears to repeat, but each repetition is actually building on the previous one in reverse order. The little girl's eyes widened with understanding. Oh, so the third symbol tells us what the first symbol will become? Exactly. Zixara's skin shimmered with pleasure at the child's breakthrough. You understand perfectly. Now try applying that logic to the next sequence. Marcus watched from a nearby table, where he was helping a group of human teenagers design new physical challenges for the game's upper levels. He still found it amazing to see how naturally Zixara had taken to teaching and mentoring other children. What had once been seen as her weakness, her tendency to overanalyze everything, was now recognized as her greatest strength. Marcus, a familiar voice called out. He turned to see Jake approaching with a data pad full of statistics. You need to see this. The Pattern Wars tournament results are incredible. Over the past month, the children had organized a station-wide tournament with teams from every species. Marcus had been worried that it might create division or competition between different groups. But the opposite had happened. Teams were mixed species by design, and children were learning to appreciate abilities they had never noticed before. Look at these learning improvement scores, Jake said, showing Marcus the data. Children who have been playing Pattern Wars regularly have improved their problem-solving abilities by an average of 37%. Mathematical reasoning is up 42%. But the really amazing thing is social cooperation scores. They've improved by 68%. Marcus was not surprised by the academic improvements, but the social cooperation results were better than he had hoped. What does that mean exactly? It means kids are better at working together, communicating with different species and including others in group activities, Jake explained. The station administrators are calling it the most significant positive change in interspecies relations they've ever recorded. Across the dome, Marcus could see examples of what Jake was talking about. A Zalarian boy was patiently teaching a human girl how to use shape-shifting techniques to navigate narrow passages. A group of Vorthak teenagers was collaborating with Corvin children to design new jumping challenges that would be exciting, but not impossible for two-legged species. Most remarkably, children who had previously avoided mixing with other species were now seeking out diverse team members. They had learned that different types of thinking and different physical abilities made teams stronger, not weaker. There's something else, Jake said, lowering his voice. My mom works in the diplomatic section and she says other stations are asking for details about our program. They want to know how we've achieved such good interspecies cooperation among the young people. Before Marcus could respond, he heard a commotion near the main entrance to the dome. A group of adult Vorthax was entering, their large crystal formations identifying them as senior members of their species. Marcus recognized them as the educational observers who visited the station periodically to evaluate Vorthax students. The recreation dome gradually became quieter as children noticed the distinguished visitors. Marcus saw Zixara's skin flicker from gold to nervous purple for just a moment before she forced it back to neutral gray. The lead Vorthax, an elderly female with crystals that covered nearly half her head, approached the group where Zixara had been teaching. Her expression was stern and disapproving as she observed the chaotic scene of mixed-species children playing games instead of studying. Zixara of the 13th crystal tier, the elder said formally, explain why you are engaging in frivolous recreational activities instead of developing your analytical capabilities. The dome had gone completely quiet now. Every child was watching to see what would happen. Marcus started to move toward Zixara, but she caught his eye and shook her head slightly. She wanted to handle this herself. Honored Elder Keth Vani, Zixara replied, her voice steady despite her nervous coloring. I am developing my analytical capabilities. I am also helping others develop theirs. Elder Kethvani's crystals glowed with skepticism. By playing games with inferior species? By wasting your intellectual gifts on frivolous entertainment? Marcus felt anger rising in his chest, but Zixara remained calm. Her skin was shifting back toward gold and her temple crystals were beginning to glow brighter. May I demonstrate what I have learned? Zixara asked politely. Without waiting for an answer, she activated the holographic projector and created a level 10 Pattern Wars scenario, the most complex version of the game that existed. The mathematical sequences involved were so advanced that Marcus could barely follow them. This scenario requires understanding of 12-dimensional geometry, quantum probability matrices, and temporal causal loops, Zixara explained. 6 months ago I could calculate the solutions, but I could not explain them to anyone else. I could not teach them, and I could not use them to help others learn. She gestured to the group of children around her. Now watch. What happened next was extraordinary. Zixara began to break down the complex mathematical concepts into smaller, understandable pieces. She used analogies and visual representations that made sense to different species. She guided the children through the logical steps, encouraging their questions and building on their insights. Within 20 minutes, she had led a mixed group of children through a mathematical problem that would have challenged university students. But more than that, she had made them enjoy the learning process. She had made them feel smart and capable and excited about solving problems together. When the demonstration was complete, Elder Kethvani was silent for a long moment. Her crystals had shifted from skeptical blue to thoughtful yellow. Your analytical abilities have not diminished, she said finally. They have evolved. Yes, Zixara said, her skin now a confident silver. I have learned that intelligence is not just about solving problems alone. It is about helping others solve problems too. It is about using knowledge to bring people together instead of keeping them apart. Another elder stepped forward. The young human who initiated this project, and where is he? Marcus felt his heart skip as every eye in the dome turned toward him. He walked over to join Zixara, trying to look more confident than he felt. You are Marcus Chen? The elder asked. Yes, honored elder, Marcus replied, hoping he was using the right form of address. You saw potential in a Vorthax child that her own people had overlooked, the elder said. You found a way to bridge differences between species that we believed were unbridgeable. How did you know this was possible? Marcus thought about the question carefully. I didn't know it was possible, he said honestly. I just thought Zixara seemed lonely, and I wanted to be her friend. Everything else happened because we worked together. The elder's crystals shifted to what Marcus hoped was an approving color. Simple human curiosity and kindness led to this remarkable innovation. Not just human qualities, Marcus said, looking at Zixara. Vorthax intelligence and dedication made it work. Corvin athleticism made it exciting. Zilarian adaptability made it flexible. Every species contributed something important. Elder Kethvani nodded slowly. Perhaps we have been too focused on developing individual analytical abilities and not enough on developing collaborative intelligence. She turned to address the entire gathering. What you have created here will be studied and implemented throughout the Vorthak educational system. You have discovered something that our greatest philosophers missed, that intelligence grows stronger when it is shared, not when it is hoarded. As the elders continued their observations and took detailed notes about the pattern war system, Marcus found himself standing with Zixara in a quiet corner of the dome. "Are you happy?" he asked her. Zixara's skin cycled through a rainbow of colors before settling on warm amber. "I am more than happy," she said. "I am complete. I finally understand what I was missing before." "What was that?" "Purpose," she said. "I always knew I was good at analyzing patterns and solving problems. But I never knew why that mattered. Now I know. My abilities matter because they can help others. They can bring people together. They can make everyone stronger." Marcus smiled. "You did that, you know. You brought all of us together." "We did that," Zixara corrected. "You saw that I was lonely and decided to do something about it. You refused to accept that being different meant being alone.